All right, we are back here with an inspirational interview. I am Hannah Levin from Heartfelt Wellbeing, and I am here with Kyle Moss today. Thank you, Kyle, for joining us.
Of course, it's so great to be here.
Yay! I'm super excited to talk with you because you have so much that we all need right now. So let me just formally introduce you with a little bit of your bio, and then we'll dive into our interview today. So Kyle Moss is a joyful mindset coach and self-proclaimed purveyor of joy. Awesome. She provides coaching and consulting services for ambitious women and organizations to help uncover their dreams and enhance their daily clarity, confidence, and contentment. Boy, don't we all need more of that. So, utilizing her more than 2 decades of leadership, mentoring, and coaching experience from around the globe, her aim is to infuse positive energy and enthusiasm everywhere she goes. Having spoken to audiences of all sizes across 4 continents, Kyle works collaboratively with each client wherever they find themselves to find fierce, vivacious, and intoxicatingly joyful solutions to everyday challenges. I love it. While not coaching, Kyle can be found creating her signature Joy in a Jar body products, practicing at-home yoga. We know a little bit about that in this group. And adventuring gracefully, or gratefully and gracefully, I'm sure, through each day with her husband and 2 kiddos in San Diego, California. So we are connecting across the country. Thank you so much for being here, Kyle. I'm just thrilled to get to talk to you today. And I think we all could use a little inspiration from you right now. I'd like to start out just by asking you how you define joy.
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like it's such a great starting point that we forget a lot of times because I talk about joy, my joy, because I know my joy, but I think first and foremost, joy is very unique.
Yeah.
I think it's something that is light and simple, but not always easy. I think it's something that's practiced, but not overly productive. So I have a lot of ways that I talk about joy, but I think one of the best ways is, again, to call it out that it is an individual experience and it differs from happiness, which I think is one of the biggest distinctions, because happiness is sometimes fleeting and exhausting to try to strive after all the time. But joy to me is a foundation. It's kind of the truest expression of who you are and where you find excitement and energy in life. So,
I love that. The truest expression is
yeah.
our joy. Yeah.
Yes, I think so, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you come into contact with that within yourself? And how did you stumble upon or recognize that you could coach other people into more joy?
Sure. Great questions. Very loaded. So if you need to
Yes.
like pull
We
my
could
neck,
divide
like
those
take
up.
me off stage. Okay, I'll start with joy. I mean, separate of the definition I just gave, which is loose, um, very early on, and my spirituality is a big part of who I am, so it seeps into conversations. But I was taught really young, and I kind of forgot about this until not too long ago. But joy stood for Jesus, others, and yourself. So JOY. And I know a lot of people have hangups with Jesus, and that's totally fine. I'm not pushing him necessarily, but just put spirituality or divinity or whatever it is that is true to you in that place, and then just keep that others in yourself, right? Like if we really break it down, if you can put your divinity, your spirituality, like that part, and then like a focus on other people, loving others and helping others, and also remembering to take care of yourself, like that's what joy means to me, right? And that expression, like I said, again, even living those 3 parts of who you are out loud is going to be different from me to you. And I think, again, that's what sums up the joy, like figuring out what is it that I like to do to serve and help others, right? Like, how do I love myself? Right? That means taking time to describe or explore and discover the things that you really like, right? So that you can take care of yourself. And again, just kind of being outside of yourself too, thinking spiritually or thinking of others before yourself. So those are the things that I think were very early on, both like I could say caught and taught in my life.
Mm.
Like I was
Mm-hmm.
taught some things and then I kind of like caught some things along the way. So that has been a very true part of who I am, is discovering that and kind of figuring out what that means to me on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
And then, just like everyone else, I like lived life.
Right. Things
Right.
happen.
We made things happen. You do the things, you try all the things.
Right.
And I went into corporate life for a long time. Right out of college, it was like, that's what you do. You go get a job. And it was great. It gave me about 15 years of incredible experience in the workforce.
Mm.
And throughout that time, though, going from company to company, I would look back periodically and say, like, when was I my most excited and energetic about work? And it was almost always when I was working alongside someone else, either mentoring them or even doing athletic coaching, just helping, like working with other people, usually one-on-one, to like cast a better vision for whatever it was that they were doing. So if it was like, hey, let's cast a vision into the future about what your job or career path looks like, right? Or let's cast a vision about what it looks like to complete this season of athletics really well and like win a championship, right? Whatever it was, that was when I became like the most alive. And so when I decided to leave corporate life and kind of transition a little bit a few years ago, I asked those same questions, like, what would I do that brings me most alive? And it was like, oh, I love talking about joy and seeing what else it is that I can do to help others tap into their own joy. And so now here I am as a joyful mindset coach.
Yeah. I just got a little tap on the head by a
I love
joyful
it.
spirit.
I love it. We're all living our full lives these days. I can hear my son. I was like, oh, he's going to open the door. He's going to open the door. And he did it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm hanging out in her room to get away from the cider pressing that's going on outside. So here we are living our joyful, complex, and very full lives.
Very full.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And so interesting. I want to go back to what you were just saying about joy, Jesus, others, and yourself. I love that. And there's this piece that I find in what I do, the coaching that I do, which is that women especially don't know what brings them joy.
Yes.
They have prioritized other people's needs and desires over themselves for so long that saying, what do you enjoy? Or if you could spend a day doing anything you want, what would you do? Or what makes you feel like your truest, most authentic self? They don't know. And so I think as I was listening to you talk, I was thinking like, yes, there's a piece of giving back to the world and letting what you have cultivated radiate out to your family, to your community. But I think that's hard won. I think we often go to helping others before ourselves, and in so doing, lose ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one way to look at it, I think. It's something that I see, especially in maybe we could say like postmenopausal women who have raised families, had their careers, and then they're kind of like, and who am I? Right? Because they've been building, like you said, like you went into corporate because that's what you were supposed to do, right? That was supposed to, like that's how you become successful or happy or lead a fulfilling life. And so I guess I just wanted to share that and see what your reflections are in terms of maybe like how those things are woven together, because I feel like from my experience as a coach, being able to help people come into their integrity of relationship with themselves then enriches the ways in which they can share their gifts with the world and their spirituality, whatever that looks like. So
I
Curious
couldn't
what your
agree more.
thoughts are there.
I
Okay.
could not agree more. It's funny because I wrote down when I was writing some notes before, I was like, oh, but with joy, like it works really well, right? It's like this just this great alliteration, like Jesus, others,
Right.
yourself, like yay. And it just helps me remember. But I
Uh-huh.
would almost like flip that script a little bit
Right.
because, like you said, we've been like kind of culturally conditioned as women to some degree to be the martyr. And
Mm-hmm.
said in doing so, kind of lose sight of like who it was that I was even meant to be.
Right.
And that's why you see like midlife crises. And that's why like women, right? So I would say like jumble it up. It doesn't have to go in that order. That was one thing I was like, it doesn't have to be in that order. I just think that it all needs to be there and present and
Yeah.
acknowledged. I actually, in my coaching curriculum, I talk about pies. I like love alliterations and acronyms. Like they very much help me. But pies talks about our multidimensionality as human beings, and it's P for physical, I for intellectual, E for emotional, and S for spiritual. Because we all have those parts of our being. And when you fill up those parts, I call them buckets, right? When you fill up those buckets, that's like you said, when you can actually pour out of yourself, right? So when you tend to yourself first and you make sure that your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual parts of your being are healthy and thriving and content, then you can discover what there is to be found in like giving back to others. You can discover the actual joy that there is in giving back. You don't become like bitter because you're doing it as a martyr, right? You do it because you're like, whoa, who would have known when I'm my fullest and healthiest self, I love doing, I don't know what it is, beach cleanup. I don't know, like I love volunteering at my son's class. Said no mother ever. Right, but it's those things that you're like, reminder, self-care is the best gift you can give to your kids, to your spouse,
Yeah.
to your anyone around you. The best and healthiest version of you, first and foremost, is always going to be the best example and the best gift you give to others. And I love this part of it. When you tend to those parts of yourself, you also give other people the permission and courage to do the same thing. Right? So
Absolutely.
when you see women that are alive, you're like, F it, what does she have? Like, I want that, right? And that
Yeah.
gives them like that permission, like, oh, can I do this too? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can. You can do it too, and you have to. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
shit on you. I'm not gonna say you should.
Yeah.
You have to, right? You have to because the world needs more people that have come alive.
Right.
So
Yes,
that's a lot.
absolutely.
Did you like where I was going with this rant?
Yes, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, it makes me think about in Ayurveda we talk about building ojas, which is your basically your essential vitality sap. And if we are walking around depleted all the time, then we can't give. It's that idea of like, are you giving from an empty cup or a full cup? And it feels really different and it's received really different. And so when we have that like abundance of essential vitality sap, then we can just be like, yeah, like this feels so good, then the giving feels like receiving,
Yes.
then that's really
Yes.
powerful.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit more about some techniques or tools that we can use to cultivate more joy in our lives.
Sure. Well, you are a coach like I am. So I am very much in the camp that no one was meant to do any of this alone. So
Yes.
I would say, yeah, seeking out your community. Like it feels cheesy nowadays to be like, where's my tribe? But like really, it is important to find like, who do you vibe with? Maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group of women or men. Like I think you're probably speaking mostly to women here, but
Mostly, but we do have men in this group too.
yeah. So find your people and make sure that you like ask for help. I think we've also stigmatized in some degree asking for help. Um,
Mm.
but I'm like, no, it's like the best because I'm me. I'm not you. And you've got totally different strengths and offers that you can give the world and to me, and vice versa. So why
Yeah.
wouldn't I tap into the people that are around me to help me energize myself and, like you said, kind of fill myself up so that we're both giving out of abundance. And right, it's like that's like the win-win-win, right? Like everyone's winning here. I'm filling myself by filling you. So get help, find who is around you. Coaching is such a great tool for that.
Yeah.
Because what I do in my joyful mindset coaching is we start here, right? I always rub my temples like, ha, 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 with the reminder, right? Everything starts with a thought. So the more opportunities you have to explore and to just kind of siphon through what's in your thought process, what's in your mindset, the better. And a lot of times, again, help in that area, like getting help, being with someone that you trust or that you know is going to lead you in a positive direction is a really good thing to do. So get help and figure out what is in your mind. So a lot of times, I talk about this all the time, we have anywhere from 9 to 20,000 thoughts in one day. That is exhausting, right?
Yes.
Like that's so tiring to think about. And the craziest part is that 80% of those thoughts are negative. No matter who you are, me, I'm pretty positive. Most people would agree, but 80% of our thoughts are negative. Most of that is to keep us alive, right? Like danger, make sure, and we don't like consciously think about those things because it's been like ingrained to keep us alive. But the crazier part is that 95% of our thoughts have been shown to be repetitive.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to figure out, what do you keep telling yourself day after day? Most people are running from their thoughts, but journaling, talking it out, asking good questions, being honest with yourself, or like I said, in number one, help, being honest with someone who's there to help you is going to be so important to figuring out what brings you joy, right? Like you need help, you need to acknowledge what's in there, and then you need to go through it and figure out what are the repetitive things that I'm telling myself, and is there something else I can replace it with that might actually be more helpful. So to get really tangible, a lot of what I do with clients is we start with those repetitive thoughts. Let's just pick one. What's one repetitive thought you tell yourself? Maybe it's something about not being enough, or feeling like that imposter syndrome creep in. Maybe it's just anxiousness and fear of the unknown, whatever it is, right? Pick one of those negative thoughts that repeats itself. And for a week, just 1 week, every day, write down the positive opposite of that thought 5 to 10 times. Really simple practice. You can do it within 1 to 2 minutes. Once you decide, like, okay, an example could be like, I am not good enough at being a wife. I don't know, that just came out of nowhere. So I'm not gonna, like, that's, I think, a common thought I hear from so many women, like, I'm not good enough at X, Y, Z, whatever it is. So instead, I want you to write down every day for a week, 5 times, I am an awesome wife. I am rocking it at being a mom. I'm a badass yogi, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Just start the process of repeating something new, right? I talk a lot too about the fact that you've got the thoughts and everything starts there. You're the only one that can also get them out and decide what goes back in. So figuring out how to do that is going to get to your core of what the foundation of joy in your life is. So that's one thing with a few things in front of it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I talk about it too, is like, what radio stations are you tuning into in your mind? And we tend to habitually tune into just a few, and it might be like the judge, the naysayer, negative Nelly.
I like looking at it that way. Tune your radio to something else. Who even has radio anymore? Get Sirius, get XM, or get I don't know.
I know, that's showing, my life.
I'm totally kidding with you.
No, it's true though. So that is really great. And actually, Kathleen just wrote in, she said, how would you suggest finding joy within the negative thoughts and behaviors we have? And then she said, I think you are answering it.
Currently answering while we were talking. Yeah. And well, and just to reiterate, I would say again, like, you've got to acknowledge the negative, right? So we've got so many thoughts that it's easiest just to run away from them, like to think them and like let them go. But I would challenge people to bring that negative to the surface and write it down, get it out,
Yeah.
right? We talk about thought downloads. I'm sure you've heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's basically journaling your thoughts, like being really genuinely honest, being authentic with what's right here, right? Like no one's here but you. So get it out, because the more you can bring it to the surface and become conscious of it, the easier it is to then go like, okay, I'm going to change one thought this week, right? Take it one baby step at a time. But honestly, I've done this myself. I don't give advice that I haven't already taken. I've gone through periods where it's been super, super helpful to write the same thing down over and over, just to remind myself, like, I'm in control of these thoughts, right? I think the concept of choosing joy, it oversimplifies it. But I think the sentiment behind like choosing joy is reminding ourselves that it really comes down to the choice of the thoughts that you choose to hold on to and that you choose to let out, right? So you're the only one who knows what is the negativity within you, right? Get it out so that you can organize it a little bit and decide what gets to go and what gets to stay.
Yeah.
So
Or, yeah. And in my experience too, sometimes just getting it out makes it lose its power. It's kind of like in my suppression of it, or being like, nobody can see this and I can't even admit to myself, that then it becomes more built up and powerful inside me. Whereas yeah, just letting it out and being like, is that really what I want? It
Well,
dissipates a little bit.
So many thoughts up there. So you
Right.
just gotta kind of pick a few and start tackling those.
Yeah.
I totally agree, because it is powerful just to write it out at all. I think
Yes.
naturally we've got an intuition within us. I think that's the divine within all of us. Like we kind of know, right? Once we stop, like there's a beauty to being quiet and being still.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh because it seems so simple, and yet no one does it, right? Yeah, and we don't do it. We do not create space for margin in our lives anymore. We create so much space for anxiety and worry and stress about things. And then we're like, oh, but I can't meditate for a minute. I'm like, why? You spent hours thinking about terrible what ifs that are never going to happen. And you can't meditate for 1 minute? Come on, let's flip that script, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So important. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about like, so our reality right now for a lot of folks is very challenging.
Yep.
And there's also kind of the frustration with positivity. That's like, how can you be positive when the world is falling apart and our politics are so corrupt and our planet is crying out for help, and we don't want to be Pollyanna, right?
Sure.
And we need to keep our focus. I talk about this a lot in the yoga classes that I teach. It's like, we have to be part of the change we want to see. We have to bring the energy for what's next to create a better reality.
Yep.
But what are your thoughts on like, man, it's hard right now. Like, it's challenging. And where do we find the joy? How can we cultivate it and do that authentically?
Yeah. I would say one of the biggest things right now is, in some degree, and some people might argue this with me, and that's fine, but you gotta look away for some moments. Like you can't overly consume the news. You cannot spend hours on social media. You've got to look away, because when you do, much like I was just saying, I think you can then see a little bit more clearly and intuitively into like, oh, I need to get back to my own basics, right? Like I have been like overly staring at screens or just absorbing all of this content that is creating this madness of thoughts in my mind. We're already, minus the media and social media, right? Minus all of that, we already have 80%, or 80% of our thoughts are negative. So imagine when you're just adding to it, right? This like crazy, all the things that are out of your control, right? So it's like, I'd say the biggest thing is just pause and get back to your own basics. And I'm being serious when I'm talking about basics. We talked about this a little bit right before we went live. This is kind of like a corporate trauma that we're all experiencing. We're all experiencing it differently because we either came into it set up and on with good practices, habits, and routines, or maybe we didn't have great practices and routines, and it feels like you said, the world is ending everywhere we look. So I would say reevaluate the basics. Like, are you in a trauma? Right, you have to talk about your physical body first. So are you tending to your physical side? Like, are you getting at least 30 minutes of sunshine every single day? Are you drinking a crap ton of water because you need water? And are you eating healthily? And are you moving your body? And your group probably does a lot of this pretty naturally, but sometimes like the sunshine part gets left out. People forget we're in our houses so much now. So it's just kind of reevaluating first. If we're in a trauma, make sure your temple is taken care of. Make sure you're balanced, because if you're not, it's going to be really difficult to get a hold of, right? So I would say that's my biggest first step, is get your physical being in a place that it's healthy, because then you'll begin to behave a little bit differently, right? Maybe you won't see things as doomsday as they are. And I'm not taking away, like, believe me, I'm not taking away from the serious reality of the things. Like, I don't have to name all the things, right? Like, there's all the things. I'm not
right.
Right. But there's also a reminder that once you've got your physical being in check, maybe then you can work on your mental, remembering that there's very little in your control about what's happening around us. So if we continue to spend time worrying about and being anxious about the things that are nowhere near our control, it's not going to serve us very well, right? And it holds you back from seeing the solutions that you might actually be able to lend. Mm. So what I tell people after you've kind of made sure your body is in that balanced check state, is can I start in my own home to affect change in the way that I want to see it, right? So as a mom, I've got 2 young kids and I've got a husband in my home. So can I love them so fiercely, right, that we all as a team go out and we continue to spread that love, right? Like, maybe that's my biggest goal in life, is just making sure that I've created what I call my family like little vessels of love that go out and they make the change, right? We're a very multi-ethnic family, so the racial conversation has been it's been high my whole life. I've got grandparents from 4 different countries. So I've got a mom who's half Black, half white, and a dad who's half Middle Eastern, half white. And then my husband's half Black, half white. So I don't know what my children are. We're just, mutts, wonderful mutts. So, but all that to say, like, that's been a really big charged piece of our last few months, years, our whole lives, really, but a charged conversation. And so with that, because it felt so overwhelming, again, I said, what can I do right in my own home? First in my own heart, but then like with my children in conversation, with my husband in conversation. So those are the 2 biggest things that I would say in the middle of what we're in the middle of, like corporate trauma or crisis, is remember your physical being first. Make sure it's healthy. It's the healthiest it can be. And then start with you and those that are immediately around you, and see what changes, positive changes you could make that are the positive changes you want to see. So that's what I would say to start with, if you're in a place of just being stuck right now.
Yeah, that's great. This is all so good. And amazingly, we have come to the end of our half hour together.
Go so fast.
We could keep talking for hours, I feel like. This is so helpful. Just to wrap up here, I just want to express gratitude, which I feel like is an element of joy, is appreciating just being able to connect with you and getting you to be part of our community here in this interview. And why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and learn more about what you offer?
Sure. I would say the best place right now is to go to my Facebook group. So you're already on Facebook. Our group is called Just a Little More Joy. So couldn't we all just use just a little more joy? I think a lot is overwhelming. So just a little bit more each day.
Yeah.
So there's a Facebook group there, and I am actually running a 5-day challenge there. So it is called 5 Secrets of Joy. Next week, we'll have surprises and giveaways and trainings. So pop on over. It is free and it is fun. And I'd love to see anyone from your group join us over there.
Awesome. We'll post a link to that below after I get off of here live with you. So thank you again so much, Kyle. It's a blessing and a joy to get to spend time with you. And we'll be in touch. I'll let you know if other folks have more questions for you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your day.
All right. You too.
All right.
Lots of joy. Bye.
Bye.